to tell you I don't run that many hours a day, but I do try to engage in some moderate physical activity, and I do try to continue even when I'm sick, so you will excuse me, I'm losing a bit my voice, but I'll do my best to keep up with this. I'm privileged to be here today, a very interesting panel from around the world, and I feel particularly honored. But I also feel I'm part of the family that is organizing this, because I will explain more about this, but we do have a little bit to do with this Congress. And I'm delighted to be in one of our actions, to be part of one of our actions. I would like today to share with you, first of all, some facts about what is going on with physical activity movement, to use the word of the Congress, with moving in Europe, and I want to take the three themes of the MOVE Congress, people, practices and partners, to tell you what we do in the European Union. I work for the European Commission. It is the regulatory body of the European Union. For those of you who don't know, 27 countries, but we do try and do a bit more around the world as well, talk about what we do, and this is an excellent opportunity. So what's happening in the 27 countries of the European Union, which are characterized, we would say, by physical inactivity rather than activity? We recently did a survey, and when we do surveys we go to all 27 countries, so this way we try and gather data that tells us what happens in the different parts of Europe. 34% of the people that we asked in all 27 countries, so this is the average, say that they seldom or never do physical exercise. 25% of European citizens are almost completely inactive physically, so 1 in 4 people in the European Union do not move. Only 3% of citizens in 3 countries, one of them is actually the country I come from, so that's why I felt comfortable putting it, say they play sport regularly. And more worrying even is that only 1 in 5 children between the age of 11 and 15 years in the 27 countries of the European Union report to undertake moderate to vigorous exercise regularly. So the facts are not very good. This is a map of the European Union countries. Is it okay? Yes? So the question here was, how often do you exercise or play sport? And when it comes to the answer, never, we had, look at the percentage, it's quite extraordinary. I think it's about 39%. So in 15 countries, at least 50% of the people say that they never play sport or do so less than once a month. And those with the lowest levels of participation, you can see them, they are the ones with the red figure. So we see that the situation, even of those who take no physical activity, is really, really bad. Now, why is this important? The Minister earlier said it very clearly. It is important because it has a health component. I work in the health area, and you know, all these years, I tell you, I had great difficulty. I've been working in this area for about 8 years now, so not that long, but I've seen a lot of evolution. When we started working in the European Union, having a political strategy on physical activity, people thought it was none of our business. They thought it's not for the regulator to tell people to move, to do exercise, to go out there and run. It's not your job. This is a personal choice. And you know, this is a very European approach for the Minister from Canada. You know, we like for people to make their own choices. It's not considered politically correct to tell people, eat right, move more. This is what we were told 8 years ago. Today, politicians come to us and say, what have you done? Why? Because right now we do have data that show us that physical activity is one of the 4 risk factors for non-communicable diseases. The Minister said it. We had the data a few months ago, WHO, World Health Organization, 63% of all deaths are caused by these diseases, which have 4 main risk factors. If you look at this, you see it very clearly. Last month, I was in New York, a great city, but I was not there on tourism. I was there for the second time in the history of the UN General Assembly. We had a health issue. The health issue that the heads of state decided to put on this year's General Assembly, the second time in the history. The first time was in 2001 about AIDS, because of the rise in concern of AIDS disease. So this time they put non-communicable diseases. Which are those? You know, cardiovascular disease, diabetes that the Minister mentioned, cancers. those that are in every family in the world right now. So this was a topic of discussion at a very high-level meeting in the context of the UN General Assembly, and for the first time ever, we have a UN political declaration signed by all heads of state in which we have a recognition of the 4 risk factors, including lack of physical activity. So now everybody recognizes we need to do something about it. These are the texts from the UN political declaration, where it is clearly said most prominent non-communicable diseases are linked to common risk factors like tobacco use, unhealthy eating, harmful use of alcohol, and lack of physical activity. Who would have expected some years ago that we would speak about physical inactivity in the same places where we talk about smoking, bad eating habits, and harmful use of alcohol? But it is now recognized scientifically like one of the 4 main actors. And not just for non-communicable diseases. I was recently reading that, in fact, physical activity even helps reduce the risk for Alzheimer's, even for certain mental diseases. So now, this is the political context. So now, worldwide recognition, UN level, physical activity, very important to address. Now, these are the benefits of physical activity according to the science. And this is what we use in our advocacy as regulator to help us make policy. This helps us make policy. Regular physical activity is one of the most important things you can do for your health. It controls your weight, it reduces your risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and some cancers, strengthens your bones, improves your mental health, and so on. And of course, regular and adequate physical activity in adults reduces the risk of hypertension. This is from the WHO. Improved bone and functional health. These are the facts. You have heard it already. The minister said it much better than I could ever say it. So, what are we doing? In the European Union, we have a strategy. We have a strategy which is called the Strategy for Europe on Nutrition, Overweight and Obesity-Related Health Issues. So this is a very sort of fancy name to tell you that we said 5 years ago, that we want the European Union to have one single piece of paper in which we agree on a number of objectives to address the problem of bad eating habits and the diseases that it can cause, and the lack of physical activity. We put these 2 together. And we made it very clear in our strategy, we put as our manifesto that the Commission believes that that moved without me moving, so I don't know how to take it. There you go. The Commission believes that the Member States and the EU must take proactive steps to reverse the decline in physical activity levels in recent decades. So we made a commitment. We made this commitment in 2007, and we have a strategy that goes through until 2013. Now, how are we going to do that? We can't go outside and go to the homes of 600 million people in the European Union and make them move. So we said we're going to do it 2 ways. First, we're going to partner with everybody that has something to do with the problem. Either because you produce food, either because you are somebody with a very large share of the advocacy vis-à-vis consumers, vis-à-vis families, you go out there and you have a big audience, because you're a sports organization, because you're a physical activity organization, because you are a citizen or medical-oriented organization. We said all these people have something to do with the problem, either with the problem, with the solution, you name it, but they have something to do with it. So we put all these people together in a club, which we call the European Union's Platform for Action on Diet, Physical Activity and Health. ICSA is a member of this club, I think. This is a partnership of approximately 35 currently umbrella organizations. So we don't take all the individual organizations that work on national level in the countries. We take their umbrella organizations, the ones who represent them at European level, and they meet regularly 4 times a year, and they have an agenda of objectives, one of them being how to promote physical activity. So this is the part with the whole society. But we also put together the 27 governments. We created a high-level group on nutrition and physical activity. What does this group do? They also meet a few times per year, and their obligation is to see how to make food healthier for the people of the European Union and how to promote more physical activity. And these are government officials who are in charge of creating and encouraging strategies for better food and more physical activity. One more thing we did was to include the strategy's objectives in the public health program. What is the public health program? It's money. It is part of the European Union's budget that finances health-related activity, and we put as one of our priorities healthy eating and more physical activity. So this is just a scheme of the EU platform that ICSA, that is hosting the Congress today, is part of. Now, 33 members, sorry, I said 35, 300 commitments. What does this mean? To make it more clear, because this is a bit European Union jargon. Everybody who comes in this platform needs to bring an action. They cannot, thank you, it's all I need. I'm told I have 5 minutes, I'm being transparent. So, everybody who comes in this platform, if you want to be a member of the club, you need to bring in something. You need to say, this is what I'm going to do. And you need to present it in a concrete way, and you need every year to check it and submit a report that says how much you have achieved, so that we can also see whether what we're doing has an impact. Because that's the most difficult thing to do. You can launch actions, but unless you measure them to see if they're doing something, if they do change minds, lifestyles, your action cannot always matter. So you need to always measure the impact. So this is another thing we do. And out of these commitments, we have 24 which are solely in the area of physical activity, but we have many more which are combined. They combine nutrition and physical activity. Some examples. This is an example by the food industry, because we want to take action also to vulnerable groups. So one of our food members funded an operation for the Turkish families in Germany, because it is one of the highest risk groups that we have in the European Union for obesity, that creates educational materials that go to schools, to teachers, to children, on how to create better habits in terms of both nutrition and exercise. We have some data already that there are 22 million people who visited this website that provides this information. The outreach of this program is for 1 million people. This is the community where it has gone, is for 1 million people. We also went to schools. We have the Danish Heart Foundation that has created a program for testing how the stamina of children in schools in Denmark. It has gone to 1,000 classes so far. This is another activity that has been brought in our club. The Danone Nations Cup, we had the footballer here, and actually when I caught up with him and we had a little chat, he knew about it. This is a magnificent activity. It is funded by the food industry, but it's like a football World Cup for children that is recognized by FIFA. It mobilizes 40 different countries. We have 2.5 million children who play, because you need to take real sport to children. That's what attracts children. What they see on their television, you need to bring it in their life. So this is one of the actions that is happening thanks to our platform, and that has quite an impact. We also took exercise to work. Because it's not only about children, it's also about adults. Most of us spend most of our lives in our offices. And I don't think this is going to get any better in the current economic context. So you need to bring also actions in work. Recently we had an action by the European Association of Communication Agencies. They're responsible, amongst others, for advertising around the world. And they matched their action together with the European Cyclist Federation. And they're testing in 3 different countries how to promote cycling to work for their employees. Very important to have such corporate programs that are totally voluntary. Let's Dance, a big action in the United Kingdom, mobilizing about 40,000 people to actively dance for an hour. Now, you don't want to make people dance, but you want people to discover the joy and the good that it does to engage in such activity. That's why you need to take it to them. And this was an action by the Fitness Industry Association in the UK, but it's an action of the European Health and Fitness Association. We took it to schools and local communities. This is a very famous program that we finance, the EPOD. It started in France a few years ago, and it was the first program that allowed us to see that in some local communities, there were 2 towns in the northern part of France, where we saw the curve of obesity in children start to go down. It was a big success story a few years ago. We took this approach and we applied it in 4 different countries. We hope it will enlarge. It was an approach where you combine science, you bring in universities, you bring in the doctors, and they work with local communities, so the mayors of small towns, the schools of small places, and you have co-funding by the industry, because we can never have enough money. You need private funding that allows you to have programs that monitor also the progress of children, so that you see again the impact of what you're doing. And we already saw a very important impact. So we also put our money on our actions. As I said, we have a European public health program. This is another possible example. In 4 different countries, you have Italy, you have Spain, you have Denmark. They work together to create active physical activity and better eating in schools. This is the physical activity towards a healthy Europe. This is NISC, a commitment, an action that takes place in 4 different countries. The idea is to build the infrastructure for national associations of physical activity and to develop national campaigns, again, as an action of our platform. We also have in other parts, because I represent the health part of the European Commission, but also we have a sports part in the European Commission that works on ways to promote health-enhancing physical activity through sport. It was created by the sports ministers of the 27 countries. It has already had 10 meetings, and it does look also how to promote sport in particular. We're talking something more special than physical activity, but sport in particular in the 27 countries. They also have specific activities that they finance around the European Union. Now, how have we done that? We have put health in all policies, so every time we do a policy as a regulator, we make sure there is a health component. When there's a health component, it allows us to work on physical activity. These are just some of the examples of the policies in the European Union. I will not bore you with them. What is very interesting is the graph. The graph shows you where you are in the European Union in terms of action, developments, or legislation regarding physical activity. The good news is that the green part has started to dominate. The bad news is there's still a red part. There's still about 10% where there is no action whatsoever. But there's also some parts of Europe where you even have legislative measures that promote physical activity. What is going on in the world? I know that you had during the Congress somebody from the White House who was here. This is the Let's Move campaign of Michelle Obama. We recently actually met to see how we can promote more synergies between the European Union and the United States. Last week, Twitter was going crazy around Let's Move because they put a bet for children to do the most. They wanted to beat, I think, the record of the most jumping jacks in 1 minute. This is the kind of promotion we need. This is the kind of activity you need. Simple, fun exercise that starts bringing into people's lives a change, a joy, and then it becomes a habit, because that is what makes a difference. And it's fantastic to see that it happens also in other parts of the world, because it creates momentum. And this is what this Congress is also doing. As I said, I'm very grateful I'm here. This is a Congress that we co-finance as European Union because we believe in these actions, but we also believe in bringing together from other parts of the world, bringing in people like footballers who can be ambassadors. Very important to have real people who play sport. I mean nothing to the people in the street or to children, but if you bring people who are known, who are sportsmen, who become really symbols for people and that can associate with, to speak about the importance of physical activity, it shouldn't be football necessarily. It can be just going out there and running in the park. But it's about bringing this element back, because in the current economic circumstances, and I will finish with that, we need to all be aware. The problem that I have as a regulator is that governments are cutting their budgets. And the budgets that are being cut will affect everything. Will affect sports in schools, sports in local communities. It will affect healthcare budgets. So the more we do ourselves to promote this physical activity through the existing means we have, the better the lives of people will be, because more sport means a healthier life, a better life, a more productive life, a happier life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Despina, and being so crisp and so quick and so within the time.
As members that represent European associations, For example, if there is an action in, let's say, in France on football, and you want to take it to schools and you want to promote physical activity, you need to speak to your national association that is represented in the platform. This is the way it works, because we don't work with each individual association, we work with the umbrella associations, the bigger European parts. But if you have an action, you need to speak to your national association. If you don't know which one it is, you talk to me. I have my details in the last slide, if you can put it back. You talk to me and I will tell you where to go.
Thank you.
We did actually, at the beginning of this year, because we completed 3 years of the strategy we had, so we sat down and we took stock of where we stand, and we renewed our vows, like they do in the marriage, the couples, after a few years. And we issued actually even a paper that is public, which is called Renewed Objectives. And in those objectives, we put more emphasis on physical activity, because we realized that this is important. But when it comes to the food industry, I need to tell you that yes, it is true, because this platform was created as a nutrition platform, for and foremost, for nutrition-related health problems. They do also finance sports activities, and we do have synergy sometimes. We have collaborations between them and physical activity organizations. We could see more of those, I agree with you, in the future. But it is our intention to put more emphasis on physical activity for the next 3 years of this strategy. So it is a very fair point.
Thank you very much. I think for the sake of time, I'm looking at moments here.